Dinis. Dinis?
Just a second. Hello, and welcome to another Open Business Council Cities ABC World Smart Cities Forum Summit. We are here together with thousands of people around the world. Welcome to a 3-day session about how to create a smarter society and the smart cities and smart governments and smart businesses. We are going through a lot of challenges, but we're going through a lot of opportunities as well. As the world faces one of the biggest crises probably in history, especially in modern times, with COVID-19, facing a lot of disruption that comes both from health, both from business technology acceleration, and of course from financial and economical issues that we're facing together. So together we put this summit to reflect some of these topics and to see how can actually we cope better with these topics, how can actually come up with better narratives, better solutions, and better understanding, especially how to cope and how to manage better all these things that are happening as we speak. So I'm very proud to welcome over 120 speakers from around the world, and that includes governments, CEOs of major organizations, some of the leading researchers and universities in the world, and as well a partnership with the likes of World Smart Cities Forum, here present with Peter Chun, that will be host this first panel. and as well with a lot of different organizations around the world, which I want to highlight as we start. Deborah Rue and Rue Global, that has been helping putting together a very inclusive digital inclusion and disability focus on how to cope with these things, and a lot of other things that you're going to be reflecting, from masterclasses that includes robotics, artificial intelligence, and how to deal with digital transformation, from cutting edge definition of NFTs to blockchain, digital transformation, how we can put this together. We're going to have 3 days of intense activity. We're going to be reflecting all these different things and going to be as well understanding how to first deal with this, cope with this, and work together as a global community of minds and spirits that can actually put all of this together. I want to pass the word to Jaewon Peter, my host for the entire event and for the summit, that is joining us from New York. So Peter, in terms of time zones, I welcome you to kick off this, and then we go to our speakers. Peter, you're mute. I think there's some frozen from your computer. If not, I'll continue going until it gets live on your side. So I think there's some problem of connection with Peter. So I'll continue just doing so. Peter, Jaewon Peter is the CEO and founder of the World Smart Cities Forum, and multiple organizations focus on creating solutions and frameworks for smart cities. And it's joining us from New York, where he's been based because of actually COVID-19. I think there was a problem with his connection. So I think as a starter, I will be just welcoming our 3 illustrious guests that I think most of them don't need a lot of introduction, but I want just to highlight the personalities, and of course they will introduce themselves better. So we'll start with Mstislav Banik, that is the head of digital transformation for the government of Ukraine, and he's been working with the government. So his title is head of developing and electronic services at Minister of Digital Transformation of Ukraine, a country that is actually going through a huge digital transformation acceleration, that is actually creating some fantastic things independent of all the geopolitics, and is actually creating, I would say, some great case studies that I think everyone and every government in the world should be looking at. Then we have Dimitrios Psarakis, that is, well, I think he will introduce his new post, but he's been joining us from being part of one of the leading authorities in the European Union and the European Parliament in terms of looking at legislation for fintech, blockchain, digital transformation related technologies, and putting together policies that actually can strengthen how to cope with these technologies that are the most foundational technologies of our times. And last but not least, Professor Kiran Fernandes, that of course is as well a dear friend and as well partner of our initiatives, and as well is the Vice Dean of University of Durham here in the UK, where I'm based, and that is going to be presenting his work and research, especially in the idea of building a global framework for smart cities and cities in general and business, called in citiesabc Indexdna. And I think, Peter, you are live. I think I want to, of course, as my co-host and as well partner, hopefully right now the connection is well. So I want to kick off with you as well.
Thank you very much. I'm so sorry I just kicked out. I have no idea what's going on here, but it's my honor to be here today with the 3 different renowned speakers and also the panelists all around the world from UK and also Ukraine. So I'm really excited to be here to share some insights, and also we can actually just talk about what's going to happen with the smart cities or any kind of problems from the cities, what kind of the challenges we might actually face post-pandemic, during the pandemic. I know a lot of countries suffer from all the different kind of suffering point moments altogether. So I think that the purpose of this session, this is actually open session of this summit and awards. I think that we can bring up with a better, incredible ideas and insights, so that we can actually help the audience around the world to understand what we're trying to do. So basically, let me just briefly introduce what I do and what World Smart Cities Forum does. So World Smart Cities Forum is a non-profit organization and based in London, England. Currently, it spreads the philosophy of people-centered smart city concept in the countries such as Ukraine, Vietnam, United Kingdom, and the United States, while conducting digital transformation in specific regions with local governments. So a demonstration complex is being built to demonstrate various technologies and services to be implemented. In order to realize this, World Smart Cities Forum Consortium has received the mandates from the central government as well as the local governments to prepare the entire master plan and creating a specific, the programs or the entities, for example, special purpose vehicles and SPV that operates the smart city projects. So World Smart Cities Forum is currently working on a master plan to build smart cities based on innovative ecosystems in Vietnam and Ukraine, and as as priorities. I think we have the guest speakers from Ukraine. We can actually talk about that, and I'll probably share some questions with them today. All right, so let me just briefly share the videos. It's only 3 minutes to share with you what this is about. Just quick.
On it, 259 babies are born. By 2050, the world population will reach 10 billion, entering an era of drastic environmental challenges, depleted natural resources, and overpopulation. By 2050, 75% of the world's population will live in cities that are increasingly connected and powered by smart technologies. How do we prepare? We embark on an arc to sail to the future, an era of smart cities to enhance the quality of life through technologies. Archi Labs is a smart city investment company facilitating smart city projects by developing master plans and raising funds from the private sector. Our mission is to provide a lasting, progressive and inclusive system for the betterment of people's lives and their environment. Our services are smart city master planning and establishment of special purpose corporations, smart city tech sandbox, sourcing technology and implementing innovation, investing in tech startups in Tech Sandbox, with 6 focused categories of solutions: smart building, water, security, smart living, waste management, mobility. We have a strong network and affiliations with global leading entities. World Smart Cities Forum, the global platform for high-level discussion and cross-sectoral collaborations for smart cities, based in London. Accenture, one of the leading global tech accelerators that has nurtured more than 300 startups and 10 unicorns. With strong founding members, we are strategically supporting the master planning of 7 regions across 3 continents: Europe, Asia, and America. Our innovation ecosystem includes the government, startups, investors, R&D institutes, and academia, making Archi Labs the one-stop shop to strategize, fund, build, and operate smart cities. Our philosophy aims to create a city that is driven by human-centric innovation, with the goal being to find a balance between nature, people, and technology. We aim to create stronger, more connected communities with higher levels of happiness. Archi Labs, sail to the future.
All right, thank you. So it's good to go. So Dinis, can you actually lead the whole process for now?
So I want to welcome everyone on the panel. I think we're going to have a very strong ideas and presentations. So this panel will lead how we can actually create smarter cities and smarter society. I think this is a big thing that we are here on openbusinesscouncil.org. That's why we create this platform, because we feel that we have so much technology available for cities, for organizations, for countries, for businesses, but definitely we are facing I would say, an epistemic challenge and system that touches all of us. Is that in one end, we all use high-profile technology in our day-to-day lives. Our phones have capacity probably never seen in history, our computers, our schools. But then we have a paradox, is that we still have around 80% to 90% of the world economy that is still not digital. We have challenges from the biggest countries to small countries, how to cope with how to create a smarter society, how to use even the tools just to protect us and to empower us. And for instance, we have as well a big disproportion of the ownership of data and special intelligence around data. Most of the countries don't have a digital basic strategy for digital. And as I think I would say the global economy is now a digital economy. And if you look at the global economy, just some numbers that I think interesting as a preamble. So if you look at around $80 trillion of GDP around the world economy, but we have around $700 trillion of trading derivatives. And we have as well, not going too much on this, 600 cities that represent 60% of GDP in the planet. So this trend is going to accelerate. Cities are going to be the drivers of the world economy, and data and technology is already the footprint and the digital framework of our society. The challenge is that the way we deal with data, ownership of our personal data, our society data, our business data, is still not completely clear. We have a challenge of understanding these things, and we have a challenge how to cope with this from a perspective of smarter society, smart cities, or smart concepts. And I think this is something that I want to highlight as the kickoff of this debate, because we need definitely to create a narrative, and not just a narrative, a framework that actually can help us taking usage of these tech tools and all these different policy making and things that we have around us that are ours, that we can actually use to use it on our behalf, on the behalf of our cities, our businesses, our organizations, and our society. For me, this is the biggest challenge of the 21st century, and probably is the biggest challenge of the history of humanity. Because as we speak, scientists are talking that it's possible right now to create something like Jurassic Park. Last week, scientists mix DNA of different species to create new bioengineering kind of beings. And at the same time, most of the technologies that we have can actually help us optimize from energy to a lot of different resources to optimize our economy. But at the same time that this happens, we have as well another challenge, is that in the last actually 6 months, the digital currencies altogether, which is around 6,000, reach over close to $2 trillion, which equals to a huge part of the world economy. And at the same time, as we speak here about the smarter society, the concept of smart cities is something that for most of the governments is science fiction. So how can we use these concepts, these studies, this research to empower us, to find better narratives, but especially to create day-to-day solutions? I think the challenge is not just the moonshots that we have, and we have fantastic things, but as well how to take this and apply this to society. So in this light, I want to welcome our panelists, and all of them global experts recognized in both research and as well their areas of expertise. And I want to start with welcoming Ukraine representative Mr. Mstislav Banik, that is going to be talking about the challenges that Ukraine is doing in terms of digital transformation, which is quite astonishing. Bearing in mind that is a country that's been facing a lot of challenges, but as well one of the most digital savvy countries in the world. And not everyone knows, but there's a huge work in terms of creating digital transformation framework that I think should be highlighted, independent of all the news. I think that Ukraine has been politically and as well geopolitical. I think people are not highlighting the great work that has been there. And I think that is a key element, is demystifying the narratives and creating case studies that actually can find solutions for everyone listening to us to understand the different things. So I pass the word to Mstislav Banik. If you could introduce yourself better. You are representing the minister, and welcome to our series.
Thank you. Hello to everyone. It was a great introduction from you. And what could I say? That we have the Ministry of Digital Transformation of Ukraine. This ministry is a young ministry, so we were created in the September of 2019, and from that time we are working with huge steps to digitalize different kinds and different spheres of life of Ukrainians. So in general, yes, thank you for your introduction, and I would like to share some our results of our work, some aims that we have on the closest years, and of course our news maybe in digital transformation of the lives of Ukrainians. And I think I would like in the first to start with the very necessary thinking that we don't have enough time. So when you come to government or huge organization, always you are going to plan something on a lot of years, and to think what the project will launch in 5 years or maybe 7 years, because always, as you said previously, the main part of economy is not digitalized, and you when you start digitalizing anything in a country, you have to fight with the old school systems. And what do we have? We don't have enough time for it. So we cannot build the plans on 10 years and more, because in 10 years or even in 5 years, there will be another situation in the world, and digital will have another phase on that time. So we are working overtimes, and we are driving on the project that we do, and this help us to move very fast. And like a small spoiler of this presentation, after 1.5 years. In 1.5 years of working of the Ministry of Digital Transformation, we created the all digital ID passport of the Ukrainian citizen, and it has the same legislation that like a plastic or paper ID. And it's just one of our wins, but it's very good phase of that what we do, and of that strategy that we have, and that scale of projects that we are going to launch during these times. So what is the progress of the digital transformation in Ukraine for now, after a couple of years of working, or maybe 1.5 year, if to be right. So our main goals on this time is just four major goals that we could then after it set on the, I think, thousands or maybe hundreds, at least hundreds aims in our daily work and our monthly plans. So all the public services from government should be available online, because everyone knows the digital is growing, and while the business products, business application, websites, even e-commerce is working and taking all of life of the peoples. And during the quarantine, we know that we saw everyone in Ukraine, and of course in different countries, and the EU, my colleagues, saw that digital services should be the first for the people when the world has some challenges like lockdown and not existing availability to leave their homes. Yes. So, and in the same time, we have some examples even in my family when my wife should get one document, and we came to the office of this governmental organization, and they said that please come after lockdown because we are not available to have visitors. And that is a good phase of that why the public services from government should be available online, because online you have no working hours, you have no lockdown, you have no holidays, weekends, anything. So, and if we say that the government should be user friendly, and the government should be like a service like Uber or Booking.com or something like that. All that we do on the public sector should be available online every minute, every moment. So the next point of our aim is covering the territory of Ukraine with high-speed internet. So what this means? If to be honest, a lot of small villages, for example, at some regions are not covered via high-speed internet. It's a problem for people. For the first time, it's a problem to be online and to stay connected with families and with even to call each other. And on the other hand, what we have that if Ukrainian government from the Ministry of Digital Transformation is launching the public services available online, we have no rights to discriminate anyone who lives in the most far village, because all of that people should use the public services online. And of course getting online public services is more important for that places, because it's a really challenge to go to the big city and to get that offline. The third aim is involving the 6 million of people of Ukraine to digital skills, because if to be honest, every one of us know that using the email or using the Facebook, it's not the digital skills really, because digital skills is about digital hygiene and digital security, protection, own data, and of course using the digital instruments and that business and the governments could share to you. And our aim is to grow the digital skills at the people, because anyone from young people to elder people should have this possibilities to use the digital instruments. So, and the last, but as it had not least, is the share of IT in the country's GDP should be at least 10%. So, and we have a huge steps on this way, and I will tell about them in the next slides. So, let's go on the same steps like was their aims, and we have DIA. DIA, it's a huge umbrella brand in the digital, in the Ministry of Digital Transformation. And what's mean DIA, and why do the things exist at all? So DIA, in translation from the English, from Ukrainian, is like action. So. But in the same time, as you see on the small, I hope you see on the icons on every screen, this is in Ukrainian, it's 3 words like D, I, and Ya. So what this means, in the same time, like in translation action, if we separate this these letters into the different words, we could create the phrase like Держава і я, and in translation, this means it's country or government and me. So, and we first of all we created that brand because getting any public services in Ukraine offline, it's a huge challenge every time because of a lot of papers, because not good places, not available, I think, for driving or far places of this organization, and you have a lot of people who want to get the public services in the same time, and of course it's burning some private corruption, and it's and because of that earlier people were not enough rely on the government, and we created that brand to show the new face of government and a new face of public services to Ukrainians, and it was a great result, because from the first day, even before we presented the web portal and the mobile application, just after presenting the brand, we had a great feedback from the people, and we have even fans and thousands of people who involved in our life, who support us and advising us, and it's a very great solution for us. So and the ecosystem of DIA that I would present now, it's the first thing is web portal for public services online, and the second thing is a mobile application. It's a common system with the web portal, but we have some different philosophy on these products, and I will tell it on the next slide. The DIA City, it's that what I said about the share of IT in the government in Ukrainian's GDP, because right now we are creating a special tax and law zone on the territory of Ukraine to like a great experiment to make the taxes low, the law more transparent, and companies to work better there. So, and in the same time, for digital skills, we have the special web portal like the digital education, and for small entrepreneurships we have the portal, and not only portal, the business. So let's talk in shortly about everything. Web portal and the mobile application is a common ecosystem, because this all is about the public services available online, but in the same time we have some differences, because when you have a big application form on the web portal that's asking you to sign via the digital the digital sign in the end, it should be available on the web portal because it's more useful. But in the same time, we are working not just on digitalizing the application forms on paper, because, for example, as you see on the screen, now the registration of the small entrepreneurship takes just 15 minutes. And how do we do it? And we made this form more simple, because in digital you have some information about the citizen from the governmental databases, and in the same time you have you can kill some duplicated fields from different forms, and in the same time you can pre-fill some fields, and so on the paper we have something about 58 fields to in the application form of opening the small entrepreneurship with the lower tax system. But on the web portal we have 10 fields. So there was 58 online, offline, and 10 fields online. And to say it, and it's our philosophy on working with public services online. So, and on the mobile application we have some another phase. And as I said in the start of this presentation, we have the first digital passport in the world. And every Ukrainian can leave his or her plastic or paper ID at home and never think about it anymore, because on the law level we have everything in digital. So, and on the mobile application, some details, yes. And on the web portal, we have different services, over the 50 services, and we, as I said before, we make the application first more simple and with less fields. In the same time, like on the construction public services, we are working to exclude the human involvement to this. So if the application form is correct and the system can just check it and everything okay, Ukrainians can get the public services from the government of Ukraine just without any bureaucracies and without the governmental staff to check anything. So this is fully automatic services, and I think in a month we'll present open and small entrepreneurship without any bureaucracy and without governmental involvement. So just apply the form, automatically check, and successful opening the business. So, and this is our big wins that we are working on, because in different countries you see a lot of bureaucracy in different processes. We analyzed it, so I know what I'm speaking about, and it's a good example. And of course, if any of our participants of today's event are interested in it, we can share anything to you of our principles and our focus. So in the mobile application, we have not just the public services, we have the documents, and the digital ID passport is a great win. But really we have 9 documents. You see the list on the screen, but at the same time, while you are reading, I would like to tell you that we have not just the view of these documents and not just legislation of using these documents. On the back side of this card, like a passport that you see on the screen, we have the QR codes and barcodes that could using these codes, citizen can share the copy of his passport. So not any screens, not as you know, like copies with a sign that this copy is correct and something like this. No, just if you want to open the bank account, the bank worker, the bank staff can just scan your QR code, a barcode, or input the number code from the passport, and just the citizen will get the push notification with the question that this bank asks you to share the copy. You agree, and the copy of your documents already flies to the back end of the bank, and no one work with the copy anymore. So it's a great revolution on the passports, and on this is worked with the text number, with the certificate of internal displaced person. So already this year in Ukraine, you can get any service in the public sector or in the private sector without any paper documents. So what I told before already about the DSCT, it's a virtual economic zone. So, and we are working closely to IT cluster of Ukraine, and we are in a huge and strong communication with the different big and small IT companies, and we creating more transparent more transparent conditions to make in business, and we are started with the IT. But in our general view, IT sector is a great experiment for it. But then we'll share this tax system on whole Ukraine if the experiment will be successful. But really, we are almost sure that it would be successful. What about the Osvita? It's digital education and digital skills. So our aim, as I said before, is 6 million Ukrainians digital skills are growing, and our solution is we have a national educational platform, and the format of education, it's not about old school articles or maybe old school articles with the photos. No, we have just the series, short and understandable, with different celeb people, because anyone always interested more in these areas where is where he or she can see their favorite thinker or favorite public person. So, and on different topics, we have different series. There are about more than 50 series now, and we have different, as you see on the screen, the top. And for example, I would like to focus you on the series for teachers, because it's a great win. It was a great win, because when the lockdown started and the scholarship education at school started online, a lot of teachers didn't know what to do, how to teach online, how to check the students work online. And I think the series for teachers is one of the most popular series on our portal. So and in the same time, we have in libraries and in the different hubs and in the public squares, we have some hubs where like offline points where everyone could visit them, and to use the website of digital education and watch the series, and after it anyone gets the special certificate. And our job portals, not governmental, just like work UA and another, use these certificates included to the CVs of people even. So, and we have even the test of the digital skills and with different trends, but I'll go on the next step. It's very necessary, and it's a great example for any country, and I think I could share this for you. So when we started working on the public services, we understood two great things. First, that any public service can't be done without another governmental organization and authorities. But in the same time, working with that teams could be hard, because they are not digital focused teams. A lot of bureaucracy and a lot of already working paper processes, and we had to change it. And the second thing that it was very necessary, it's the IT system of these authorities and governmental organization, because if that systems were available, 1,000 workers of that ministry working with the database, it's not okay for public services available online, when there are millions of people use this service. And now we understood that we have to develop the IT systems of all the ministries and governmental authorities of Ukraine, and this way this way was born, I think, like a Chief Digital Transformation Officer, CDTO. It's a deputy from the minister or head in any governmental organization, like in the Minister of Internal Affairs or any another minister in the tax office or social insurance office. We everywhere have the CDTO, and it's our partner, our brother. They are our brothers in arms in digitalizing in Ukraine, and you see the functions, and it's such an institution like a CDTO helped us to create not just public services online, and our aims to come to this aim to share to cover all the public services in digital. They are creating the complex systems already, and now we have 94 general projects of national digital transformation from different spheres, and so as you understand, our digitalizing train just start, and it's his move, and so all the things we do and common with the CDTOs is current goal. So we are going to be one of the top 10 digital countries in the world, and we are going to feel, I think, that every Ukrainian is skilled in digital and everything is available in digital. So I tried not to be very boring, and I tried to be not to show my presentation too long, and in any way I can communicate with any of you who want to know something more about that we do, and thank for your attention. My name is Mstislav Banik, and I'm a head of development of electronic services at the Ministry of Digital Transformation. Thank you. I'll stop sharing my presentation and give the word to my colleagues.
Thank you so much, Mstislav. It's quite impressive what you're doing over there, and I think the goals as well to transform the country. I know as well that you are working as well in a smart city strategy for the country, that probably Peter is going to be having some of these things, but it's really impressive, and congratulations. I think it's a great example as well to look at frames in terms of different things. Of course, we're going to have multiple countries presenting different things, but I think what you achieve is quite, I think it's powerful because you're trying to put all the entire government, but as well society working together. And I think that is precisely, I think, the goal that I think every government should aim and work on that. So thank you. I know that you have limited time, so probably, because I know that you have 12 minutes.
In 10 minutes, I will quietly leave for you guys.
Yeah. Yes. So I think before you leave and before we go into the other speakers, we still have around 40 minutes ourselves. So I think this is a long session, and I think we have time. So Mstislav, I would like to ask from my side, so what would be, let's say, for people listening to us around the world, where were the biggest challenges that you face in terms of the government to put this together? So because I know that there's the infrastructure, there's all the part of infrastructure, but as well as the people and there's the organization. So I would like to hear the biggest challenge that you faced so far.
I would like to tell you about two biggest challenges. First is this really infrastructure, because, for example, we had a situation when the register with the passports was switching off on the night. And it's one example of the problem that we have. And the second thing is bureaucratic philosophy of other authorities, because we had not just to make something, we had to change their philosophy, and we had a lot of meetings when they say, "Oh, guys, you are cool in digital, but we don't have the common way." So, and changing their philosophy was a very strong challenge for us.
So another question I have is related with data. So one of the challenges we have, for instance, here in the UK, is that, for instance, the government open some programs to Google, and Google took over a lot of the data, for instance, from the hospitals and different things. So how are you managing the data ownership? Because of course, when it comes to data, the most thing for the countries, because as you start having all these systems working together, you can actually understand in real time the problems people are facing. You can actually start having a lot of different things. So how are you managing this part of the data, which is a very important thing for the smarter society that we're talking about, and as well for a smarter country in this case?
What do we do with data? So for the first thing I would like to say that in Ukraine we have 341 governmental databases. So it's really a lot, and every of these database is connected to different governmental authorities and ministers. So it's very hard to connect everything between each other, and we don't share this data to business. We just can open some data that should be open data, because we are developing really open data sphere in Ukraine. But what about in other data? And what we have? We are working on the infrastructure, but in the same time we are working with such a solution like a Trumbita. It's a kind of Estonian X-road that helps us to exchange data, to create encrypted exchange data between the databases. So. But really, if to say about data, we have another problem, because a lot of data in Ukraine before were just in paper, and I think in your country is the same. And a lot of databases are not full. Really, for example, construction database is filled since I think 2013, and the data before is just in paper, and the government even don't know that this data exists. And we create some solutions like a verification of data, when the person could upload to the application form his paper scans of his paper documents, and our staff can check these documents in paper archives on our site, and then verify and to add this data to databases. And it's a huge challenge, because a lot of data in paper, and they are mixed, and some of this data is lost even.
Oh, really impressive. So
Dimitrios trying to ask.
Yeah, no, it's really impressive, because it's not easy to put all of this, and I think this is kind of the biggest challenge for any country, and especially any government, because all these different data sources create a huge, first of all, a huge technology setup that you need to continue managing, because you become as well a tech setup country. And I think this is, where most of the countries are right now struggling. But then there's the ownership of data. That's what you can do with data and all these different things. So I have two more questions. I know that we have around 5 minutes for you, and then we'll pass to the other speakers. So my second question, my next question is, so in terms of, I know that you, and we have a very global audience, I know that you created for the first time, I think you are one of the first countries to offer the possibility of external companies to create companies in Ukraine, and actually to work with special incentives. I know that in Europe there's a lot of ways of managing that as well in Asia, but could you tell us a bit what you are doing for external companies that want to invest or they want to work with Ukraine to facilitate their lives? Because I think that's a very important thing, and the first year the UK has been leading that.
If to speak about the foreign IT companies, I would like to tell about them first, because today we speak about the digital. That system that I presented, that is DSCT, is a virtual economic zone. We are sure that it would be very attractive for foreign companies, because everything that are dangerous now for foreign IT companies, starting with the staff laws and tax systems and anything from government, will all be killed there. So everything will be greatly transparent. So, and we are creating a new phase of sharing the companies to Ukraine. So this way. The second thing I would like to say from IT tool, we are to make bigger the slots for IT workers in Ukraine from another countries. And for example, you know that in Belarus, not very good situation in the politics, and a lot of companies, I think the half of IT companies from Belarus relocated into Ukraine, and not just to the capital of Ukraine, not just to Kiev, but to the different cities. And we create even some programs for them and some knowledge base, like how to rent the apartment, how to rent the office, and we did a lot of help for them. And one of the deputies of the vice prime minister and my colleague Alexander Bornikov, who is leading the DSCT, he worked with Belarusian IT cluster to help them to relocate into Ukraine. It's a great example, really. And it's without the DSCT, and we hope that when we start the DSCT, it would be much more attractive for them. For another countries, what would I like to say? Another companies. What would I like to say? It's as the Ministry of Digital Transformation working on the development of databases. It's not just about data. It's about security, about data protection, about logging any changes, and databases to be safety. And the first thing I'm afraid if one of the things that foreign companies afraid of, it's from protection of their businesses because of protection of their data. And when we will have transparent taxes and protected data in databases, there will be no any danger and any thing could be afraid for these companies. And the third thing about the hot situation on the east of Ukraine that you know, on the Donbass and Crimea, I would like to say that yes, we have that, but we live our life fully. We don't feel like it's a war in Ukraine or something like this. Really, if to be honest, if not to see the news and not to know that the part of Ukraine is occupied, I don't feel really a difference in my life. So any companies that would like to locate their offices in Ukraine could not be afraid of it.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for this. Jaewon, you want to wrap up? Because I know that...
I think maybe you covered all the questions that are very important. So maybe one more questions, because our organization, World Smart Cities Forums, now currently working in building up smart cities with the Ministry of Communities and Territories Development of Ukraine. So we are about to actually signing the mandates very soon, and we already signed the Lviv city government back in 2019. So when you know what you actually just covered and explained to us about digital transformation thing, and also the you just shared with us the e-government kind of systems, very fascinating and very impressive. I'm just like a little bit worried about. We are actually targeting on the major metropolitan city area, but the most important thing to achieve the very meaningful goals to create the better cities based on the innovation ecosystems and digital transformation is basically.
I would like to add something. Yeah. We have the CDTOs like deputies in digital transformation, even in regions. So we have the department and the ministry. That is the aim of what is to connect and to stay in touch with the regions.
Yeah.
And we have already a lot of deputies in digital transformation of the regions and in the cities, and we really work together in team. And for example, this Friday, I'm moving to Odessa. It's one of the cities of Ukraine, and there I will have a lot of meetings, and all of them would be with the CDTO of Odessa. And we will have the meetings with the business, with the government organization and authorities of the Odessa. And it's a good share because, for people, for citizens of the city, sometimes it seems like the ministry is somewhere far in the capital, and they live their own lives. But in the cities, people live their own lives, and we are trying to show that it's not true. And time after time, I'm moving to different cities, and I meet with the people and meet with the city tours, because a lot of services that we have in general in the country are connected to cities.
Right.
And in the same time, one of the ways that I'm personally working on is not just the public services, is the sphere of the open data. And how this is important for living in the cities, because opening the data in the general databases, it's okay, but a lot of databases are located in the cities. And opening this data can give a good push to create some startups and projects to make living the people more easier and more comfortable based on the open data.
Okay. I think that maybe we have more questions, but we can actually just keep in touch to just explore more collaborations in the future. So I think that maybe we have enough, very limited time in this session. So
yes, I have to leave. Dimitrios, you can send me maybe an email with your question, and we'll stay in touch with you. So thank you very much to everyone. Thank you for this invitation and conversation. Yes, goodbye to everyone, and I wish you to have a good panel discussion after I'm leaving too.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you. So I'll pass to you, Dimitrios, and I will go straight away because I think we will wrap up between both of you. And thank you for your patience as well. We had to coordinate this in a slightly different way. So Dimitrios, asking to you, so as someone that has been working, of course, leading probably the most powerful economical bloc in the world, that is the European Union, especially when it comes to regulation related with fintech, blockchain, and some of the most advanced technologies, and as well as research in these areas and working both with policymaking, with organizations, with countries. I would like to pass the word to you. And of course, you are right now in a transition position as well in a lot of different things you're doing. So I would like to hear from you and understand as well, how do you see these things, how to transform a smarter society, and as well how to work with the tools that we have and that you've been working and researching.
Thank you very much, Dinis. Good morning to everyone from Brussels. Usually, you see me talking about the European Union digital policy from my role as EU official, as a draft person of many digital economy and fintech related regulations, resolutions, and initiative reports. Today is the first time you see me in another capacity from my role as the Brussels Council Director, which is an initiative that tries to promote digital technology as a new paradigm of organizing society, and have in its core the European Union values, standards, and market structures. My promise is to conclude my 5 minutes by saying what is the role of Brussels Council and why it's important to be engaged with it. First, I would like to speak very briefly about the shifts we see in the society. In the previous three industrial revolutions, we saw a constant conflict between the government, the market, and the community, the three pillars of the society, to claim bigger and bigger role into this economic situation. And in the previous 3 industrial revolutions, what we observed was that always either the market or the government expanded their role in expense of the communities. I see right now that with the digital transformation, the role of the communities, the third pillar of the society, becomes stronger and stronger because it has now the tools through the digital technologies and other exponential technologies to claim its role and restore its role, and by doing so, to improve societal cohesion, remove negative impacts like populism and marginalization, and create a completely different framework of organizing society. If we are talking about digital transformation and smart societies, we are talking about smart communities. And this shift in the proximity of decision-making, ownership, customization of products and services is in the core. We also have a shift in the markets. And when we are talking about shift in the markets mentality, we are talking about fundamental changes. We grew up, or we started in the university having in our mind wonderful minds like Oliver Williamson about the importance of the size and how to expand the scope of the firm. Today, we are moving to another environment where in the core we see the dynamic capabilities, not the size. The second important shift is that we are moving from this Porterian mentality of sustaining competitive advantage to a transient competitive advantage that is a completely different set of mindset of organizing your business. And the third very important shift in the market is that instead of having a top-down identification of the technological standards, we are moving to an opposite direction, a bottom-up. With these societal shifts and market shifts, we need a completely different mindset of organizing this system. And we see the move to an ecosystem mentality of organizing this society. When we are talking about ecosystems, roughly speaking, we are talking about the creators of the technology, the market needs, and the implementers, companies and startups. And their job is to create certainty on every new idea and every new technology in order big bubbles to be smaller and smaller gradually and create bigger certainty, institutional certainty around these new technologies and organizing economic activities. The other very interesting thing is that also the companies are moving into ecosystem mentality. We have companies that create ecosystem of products, or we have companies that create ecosystems of partners. And this shifts entirely all the idea about antitrust law and competition law, because all the identification of what means market power is not very relevant anymore. And ecosystem mentality is very instrumental in taming the danger of big tech, for example. And having this operational shift, societal shift, and market shift, we also have the shift of the European Union in the global competition. The major shift is from moving from the idea of do it like EU, European Union as a global regulator, to move to an understanding of seeing EU as an instrument that provides not how to do things, but do it with EU. We see that in the last 5 years, European Union made significant steps in providing a very reliable framework on how to organize this digital society. We introduced wonderful ideas like technological neutrality and business model neutrality. We organized significant initiatives around blockchain, artificial intelligence, high-performance computing. We are moving forward into creating a significant framework for data management through the DSA and DMA that we expect to shift the market altogether. but most importantly, we have a significant shift to an ecosystem mentality. And this is the most important thing of my today's intervention, because we used to have this conversation with Dinis. Dinis always says European Union lacks the big platforms. This is true, but is it what we actually need in Europe? Another capacity to move in a concentrated framework? We need to replace this mentality slow by creating vibrant and strong ecosystems instead of big platforms. And we can do this through expanding our capacity. And we are living, of course, in an era of techno-nationalism, or tech clash, as we usually see it in the articles. European Union is not of this kind of global power. We understand our role as expansion of capacity to third country ecosystems. We need to develop capacity, not to sell products to third country ecosystems. I was recently in Dubai. They have a wonderful infrastructure over there. They also have Americans and Chinese selling them products instead of creating internal capacity. So one of the major roles of the European Union through the global standardization policy that is going to be announced in the next 3 months is to help those third country ecosystems to flourish. And I would like to conclude by saying that these 4 lines, meaning the shifts in the society, understanding the shifts in the society, understanding the shifts of the strategic landscape in the business environment, understanding the shift of the organizational requirements, and finally, understanding the shift of the global role of the European Union into creating capacity to third countries, is the role of the Brussels Council that we are talking, we introduced in the beginning of the discussion. We don't want to expand influence. We want to expand capabilities and hope and synergies. And I'm very proud to have Dinis Guarda partner in this initiative. And soon you will hear more about it. For the economy of the panel, I give the floor to Dinis and to colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimitrios, and I'm quite excited as well to be part of that adventure. And I think, like you said, is more about how can we empower different organizations and as well to create bridges, because in the end of the day, we have enough powerhouse. It's more about the bridges that is missing. And I will pass the word precisely to Professor Kiran Fernandes, that is a quite recognized researcher and academic that has been working in these areas of policymaking, technology, and complexity organizations. And as well today in First Scale Worldwide is going to be presenting precisely, I think one area that I've been, of course, in working, but the research white paper, citiesabc Indexdna, that provides precisely an academic, scientific framework for cities to develop better policies and rankings for the transition to Society 5.0. So, Professor Fernandes, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Dinis. I shall share my screen. Okay, hopefully you should be able to see my screen there. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
You can
Thank you very much.
if you want right now.
All right. Thank you.
Can you make it bigger? Can you make it bigger screen?
Yeah, you can put it in present mode.
It is in present mode. Sorry.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it now in present mode? No.
You took it now, so if you can.
Yeah.
So you were there. It's just there's a button to put full screen.
Yes, which is what I did.
Or F5. You can hit F5
if you are in a PC. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now it is, I think.
Okay. There it is. Okay.
Okay, much better.
Yeah, so thank you very much. That was a very, very interesting presentation, which started with us looking at Ukraine. But I think in particular what Dimitrios was talking sort of echoes a lot with what we have been thinking about. So for some time, as Dinis said, we've been having a conversation on trying to put a framework around the concept of smart cities. Now, when we come across the term cities, the sort of images that come to our mind are something perhaps like what you see on your screen. The usual locations where you see them as cities, and therefore we then start to use these as a proxy for smart cities, regions, the usual major cities. And we've been asking the question for some time, what is a city? Is it a metropolis with hustle bustle of loads of people working together with the financial capital at the center? Is it this version of a city where you have a lot of high-tech systems interacting with people in a very modern setting? Is that a city? Is this a city, where you have people living in poverty but also operating an economy? Is that a city? Or is this not a city? Or is this a city where people are residing in some form in a rural community? Is that a city? So we've been sort of trying to figure out how can we best define a city, a region, and therefore how can that be then converted into a smart city? Because they all are examples of dwelling in some form. And depending on which part of the world you are, you will probably look at this and say, yes, I can relate to some of these in a way. So when we then use the word smart in context of city, what do we mean by smart? Is it somehow making people smarter? Is it using technology that makes the whole system smarter? Is it by bringing in new smarter governance that makes it smart? Is it all three of them? Is it a combination of them? So what is a smart city? And in an academic sense, this is an ongoing debate. And there are several perspectives, and there's no one perspective which is any better than others. And this is something we've been debating as a team for some time. So, however, if you start looking at the very fundamental things of what is a city. So what is a city? In a city, what you see are certain things. You see multiple actors, and it doesn't matter which of the four pictures you can relate to, which I showed about the city. What you see in common is multiple actors. Actors are people, actors are transport mode, actors are things perhaps in dwellings. These are all actors that exist in this particular system, i.e. a city. However, these are not in isolation. These systems interact dynamically with one another. You might have citizens interacting with their transport systems through perhaps an app or even a simple kiosk-like system. So there's a lot of interaction which is dynamic. So we see some characteristics that are common across when we use the word city. And these are not isolated. There are feedback loops. So in different areas, they're connecting to one another. There are some direct feedback loops where perhaps citizen interacting with a particular system. And you saw in the morning several examples in Ukraine of how that is already happening. Or there's also indirect loop. Actors interacting with other entities in the system through an informal mechanism, indirect feedback loops. These will also, you see, are open systems. There is not just information contained in one area. There's information that flows back and forth between different systems. There's a lot of transparency between these. There's a lot of conversation in terms of data transfer, in terms of intelligence transfer, in terms of knowledge transfer, information transfer. So these are open systems. And one of the things you will notice is they have an element of knowledge stored within themselves. So if you look at any of those four pictures and you start to break them into smaller areas, there's intelligence stored, there's distributed memory of what is happening, and these distributed memories are also connected to one another. The one thing which is of common across is when you start looking at patterns, they are not linear, i.e. if you do one thing, the other thing automatically increases or decreases. These are very, very complex behaviors, and what you notice is things emerge over a period of time in a very non-linear like fashion. And whenever there's a pressure, internal shock, or external pressure, COVID being a classic example, these systems evolve and try to overcome whatever that external particular force is. Obviously, in the case of COVID, the society or that particular region will make appropriate decision based on its memory to make certain changes to itself so it can adapt and it can survive. So one of the things you see is in these regions or in these cities, there are some common characteristics, and we have identified several, and I've listed 7 of these over here, which is also in our white paper, which you're more than welcome to download or ask from us. And these are about actors, how they interact dynamically, the way feedback loops work, the nature of the system, how memory is stored, the type of behavior you see in terms of non-linearity, and one of the most important is how these systems adapt. So we have viewed cities or regions as from this perspective, and this perspective is called as complex system perspectives. So we believe that cities are complex. They are things that contain citizens and how they interact with different entities, including themselves, in a very complex manner. So understanding cities is not a question of trying to understand something in a simplistic sense. So when we then start looking at city from that perspective, from complex system perspective, there are a few things that we also would like to highlight in our report. Now, when people have looked at smart cities, there have been generally 3 streams of thought. One is, as you would expect, technology focus. So the key focus is around smart city broadly equates to technology. There's also another view where people have particularly looked at it is entirely from a citizens and basically how we empower citizens. There's also a lot of school of thought around governance. And these are mainly the 3 school of thoughts. And what you see in technology focus, in citizen and governance focus is, the whole agenda, the whole policies around either creating smart citizens, either creating smart governance systems, or trying to get good governance out of it. However, the way we look at it is this concept of smart city, it's at the intersection of all of these 3. Smart cities are basically human-centric ecosystems, and you probably heard the word ecosystem from Dimitrios a few times. They are human-centric ecosystem where you have the physical, which obviously plays a major role, and the cyber space system, which is the digital world, are interconnected to bring about some very specific things. And they are about social, economic, political, and environmental change. So this is how we view a smart city, as an ecosystem. But it also has some features. We view smart cities as trade corridors. So there is a clear purpose that these cities are interconnected to one another and there is a flow of trade that takes place. It's a question of balancing complexity. And again, this is where I think you saw earlier the whole debate around balancing complexity with simplicity. And what cities are not are very simple. So it's a question of balancing complexity. Our whole concept is building it around the whole debate around citizen and place. There's a very rich interaction taking place there. And it's a focus. There is a focus on these cities. And we have a quadruple focus, and that is around social, economic, political, and environmental changes. So these are the 4 things we think. Our view to smart city, which we are using a term called Indexdna, is about evidence-driven. So it's not just data-driven or information-driven, but it's about looking at knowledge, it's evidence-driven, and we want to help cities while it's academically driven, it's very pragmatic. And I will use one example to explain how the Indexdna framework works. So let me take one example, which we are all familiar with and we've been having some conversation. It's about urban or sustainable urban mobility. You've seen some data, and what the data has shown is there is a growth in global population. And as you can see, the growth in global population is particularly focused on the urban, and there is an increase, and by 2050, predictions are 66% of the global population will be in some of these urban communities. And when I use those urban communities, I mean these urban ecosystems. This drives a number of things. The one thing it drives is demand for passenger mobility, and that is booming. That's roughly booming at the rate of 2x per year, so 2 times. And this is growing at an exponential rate. But there's also, at the same time, a growth in the goods mobility. So this is about trying to bring the resources to the urban cities. And this is growing at a rate of 3x. So it is growing at, again, an exponential rate year on year. Now, the whole debate around this is, while there is this growth on urban mobility, be it for passengers or be it for goods or a combination of both, there is a whole debate around how do you make this sustainable. So if we look at this as an issue in an ecosystem, which is our definition that we showed earlier, what is going on? Now, one example of this is Helsinki is a good example to take here. Now, Helsinki's aim in this context, growth in both the citizen-focused as well as transport-focused growth, Helsinki's aim is to make car ownerships pointless in 10 years. So this is an agenda. Now, the debate here is this something that is driven by the citizens, i.e. the citizens saying, we want to have an agenda where we basically are able to achieve this? Or is it technology driven, i.e. there is technology in place that allows us to have basically a cadre of systems and transport technology that allows us to achieve this aim? So this debate, is it a citizen, is it technology, is a constant debate. And there are many issues. I just highlight one, which is of sustainable urban mobility, of course. And this, one of the things that Helsinki is doing is they have a technology platform called VIM, which you might have heard of, which allows to manage a number of these things together to achieve. It's not by no means the only technology, it's one of the technologies that is being used. Really, the debate here which I want to highlight is, it's almost like these Escher's hand drawing, which you perhaps have seen. Which hand is drawing which hand? Is it the citizen driving the technology, or is it the technology driving the citizen? In fact, it's both. In fact, perhaps if I use a much more appropriate diagram, rather than using Escher's, it's probably something like this. Is the citizen driving the technology, or is the technology driving the citizen behavior? And I think the way to look at it is, it's both. And that's the way we have framed at the heart of our framework this debate. Citizens are using IT devices to basically connect with interconnected systems which offer service. The service then drives citizen behavior. So this is a circular loop which is going on all the time. It's not one and then the job's done. It's a constant thing that's going on. It's a complex thing. Now, if you look at the example again of Helsinki, that is our layer 1, by the way. And we call this as our layer 1 or inner core. This is at the heart of our framework. Building on this inner core, what you notice, and let's say take again the example of Helsinki and the example throughout here, is this citizen layer, inner core, is interacting with a number of very, very core zones. And we have 4 zones we identified, and that is the government, society as a whole, business, and academic research. So for example, if you looked at the example of Helsinki, on how they're managing, what they're doing is, it's the government or the council of City Council of Helsinki, the partnership, for example, they have several partners, of which one is Aalto University. Society as a whole, in Helsinki is the Citizen Assembly, and businesses, and in this case, one happens to be Vim, by no means the only company. So if you look at that inner core, what you start seeing is there is an interaction around an issue, and for different issue, the interactions will change. You end up with different key actors playing a role. Okay, that's the second. The third layer is all of this has an outcome. Now, in our case, we are very clear that the way we view things has 4 key outcomes. Outcomes around the environment, outcomes around economy, outcomes around political, outcomes around social. Now, not every issue at the heart of the core will tackle all 4. They will tackle perhaps some of them, but not all 4 of them. For example, the case we are talking about, sustainable urban mobility, as you would expect, primarily will basically have an interaction with the environment, perhaps followed by social, economic, and then political. So depending on which issue, so that's layer 3 of our framework. Now, we have identified in this case some outcomes, and I don't want to go through them in detail, but some of them associated with government. For example, the type of outcomes you would expect is for government to do is to look at the EV infrastructure, tax incentive perhaps, things around monitoring air pollution, developing green spaces, investment of the public in transport system. On the society side, things we would be looking at is uptake of people. People have to uptake it. Citizenship or citizen-led initiatives for sustainable mobility, safety training. On business would be how they provide green space, how they participate in green projects. And obviously on the university side, things like how they would work with the economy, with that particular core zone, to be helping in new forms of smart mobility systems, helping design perhaps the road, government policy, knowledge transfer. So there are several outcomes associated with that core, as you can see, with regards to this particular issue. Encompassing all of this, we have in that white line, as you can see, what we call as our 4th layer, or the ethical outcome layer, which is predominantly a technology layer. Now, in this case, as you know, there is a platform called Vim, which allows a citizen to interact and decide a number of options associated with how they wish to go from point A to point B without using a personal car or a personal mobility device. And that's the whole outcome of this technology platform. It allows, in this case, for the consumer through a number of mechanisms, be it using taxis, public transport, rental of cars, and there's many options. There's a whole business model behind it that makes this whole agenda possible. However, it's important, and the reason we use ethical technology outcome layer is because there is an issue around GDPR, there is an issue how data is used, why data is used, how data is collected, what is the purpose of data. So this is that while it's technology, the issue of ethics around technology is also important. So as you can see in this, there is the final layer, or the 5th layer, is about outcome. Now in this case, as you can see, the outcome as seen in the dark lines is around environment and social change. So this allows us to measure a whole ecosystem in a very different way, rather than ABCD and who's good or bad. It understands that at the heart of this is a very, very dynamic living system, and how it then goes into different layers. And that allows us to then measure some very pragmatic but very sensible things. And this is just some examples, like how perhaps it's helped business in investment, how many people are using the system, number of trips made, what is the nature of trips using a particular technology, what percentage of people are using different types of technology, how does this compare with other parts of the world, and the list is a very long list. Now, this allows us to look and measure and monitor things with an intention, in a very, very different way to just having a typical system of trying to benchmark things in it. So in a nutshell, what is this framework, the Indexdna framework? The Indexdna framework is viewing at a smart city or a city from a very complex system perspective. As I said to you earlier, there are 5 layers in it, and they build up with the whole debate around citizen and system at the center, all the way to outcomes which can be measured. There are 5 layers of it, and you build them in layer 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And the whole idea is, we are focusing this whole concept around the ongoing debate of Society 5.0, this whole interaction about human-centric ecosystem that allow us to do a number of very exciting things around 4 of these key things which I talked to you about. Now, I just want to thank my colleagues. So this is, while I'm presenting the work, we had great collaboration with a number of colleagues. Apart from myself, we had Professor Jamal Kanechi from Edinburgh University, Dinis Guarda, who's on the call, who's the chief exec of Studium, Hilton Supra, who is also in Studium and works in the business development side. And we were delighted to have a research associate, William Hosey, who works for Studium, to work with a lot of the data collection and analysis as we went along. But we also had a slightly extended team of colleagues from a number of places, and I'll briefly read their names. Atanu from Durham, who works in technology management, who's an associate professor. We have Professor Yiping Liu from Reading University, Professor Miguel Amaral from Lisbon, David Castan, who has a number of roles. From Global Gateway Federation, we had Robert Bell, Professor Yu Zhong, who works at the University of Surrey, Dr. Nick Russo from Unconventional Connection, and Antonio Franca, who's a counselor who also was involved in this particular project. So it was great to listen to my colleagues today, but we're also very excited and delighted to launch this white paper, which you can download, and we will be always very keen to work with you. I thank all our partners who are involved in this particular project from day one. And last but not least, thanks for watching and listening to our launch of the Indexdna framework for smart cities. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think this is a first worldwide, and I think hopefully this research that is taking us almost 1 year can actually help a lot of these organizations. And I think what is key right now for us, and I'll pass right now, the panelists still have some time, is how we're going to make this in practice, both from the policy making to technology to platforms. And I think Dimitrios touched one important thing. I want to start with that is, I think it's not so much about creating bigger platforms. We have enough bigger technology in the world, but it's about how we can actually make these. I think, like Professor Kiran mentioned, there's a very interesting bridge that I think is critical to make between the cities and the governance of the cities, the universities in particular, because normally that's where knowledge and research and data, and then as well business and corporations and all the policy making. So I will go to you, the first question, Dimitrios. You've been on as well leading legislation for 27 countries, and as well being in around projects that are changing the way we look at technology, the way we look at finance, and the way we look at this kind of policy making that are critical. So I want to touch here, of course, in terms of Indexdna is the first time that you probably heard the different things, but we have as well Brussels Council, which has quite an ambition similar to create policies and create solutions. So how do you see these things together, and especially from your experience, dealing both with writing regulation, but as well dealing with institutions, with people, with organizations, and with countries? Because in the end of the day, this can only happen if we all together work on this. And I think we demystify a lot of these things.
Let me thank you very much, Dinis, for your question, but most importantly, thank you, Professor Fernandes, for this very enlightening presentation. I have a recent example. few weeks ago, we had the opportunity to meet in another panel with Professor Fernandes. Since then, I read, I don't know if everything, but many things he wrote on ecosystem and ecosystem development. And I communicated these ideas to the relevant European Commission colleagues. Soon I hope to have an invitation for him in one of our gatherings. But what I want to say is this. It's very difficult to find the best way to achieve the adaptation you need. I mean, we have a wonderful example of how to organize a smart cities ecosystem here. We have the idea of how this is to be structured. We know what we expect: efficiency, welfare, quality of life. But I want to share with our audience, it's not something we build once and we use it as a bridge. It's not a bricks and mortar thing. It's a lively thing that has to adapt with the changes of the environment, changes in the population. We have a COVID, which means a macroeconomic shock that changes the aggregate demand and the supply chains. We have endogenitis, meaning small statistical errors that accumulate over time and makes us to reconsider our initial structure. So we have the business model, which is what we expect. We have the profitability model, which is what we want to achieve out of it. But what is the glue that links the two? And this is a question to Kiran. How we can make sure that this adaptation over time takes place timely and without having somebody bombing or undermining this initiative? Because unfortunately, I'm in politics, and I see a lot of legacy model enthusiasts, if I may, who try to sabotage the immediate change because they gain something out of it. So how you ensure adaptation over time? This is my first question to Professor. Thank you.
Firstly, thank you, Dimitrios. I mean, many things you say, I fully agree with you, and thank you very much for reading the work which we have done in the past, which is always good. It's always good to know somebody's reading them, so that's always great. But you ask a very interesting question, and I think when one of the things we have, and you're right, first, it's complex, it's not linear, A doesn't always equal to B. So this is the first thing I think people, when I use the word people, it's the whole 4 quadrants in us need to realize that it's not A equals to B. This is the first thing. Just by increasing one thing doesn't mean the other thing is going to reduce or vice versa. And the second thing I think we need to have a serious debate is around the word and concept of business model. We have been trained, and rightly so, perhaps for a very long time, that when we use the word business model, we think about at the heart of the business model, value proposition, and generally that value proposition equates to pounds, euros, or dollars. Generally, I'm not saying it's always, it's generally. And then we are trained to say, if this is the value proposition of the business model, we have X mechanisms to capture the value and Y mechanisms that allow us to then enhance that particular value proposition. Now, and this compartmentalized thinking is something we are all trained to for a very long time. And I can see it has worked broadly well, if I use the term, in the pre-COVID world, because broadly that's how the whole system worked. I think if we are serious about that conversation moving forward, we need to ask ourselves a very fundamental question. Is this really how we want to define our business model? When we use at the center of value proposition, what is the value proposition? And I think you listed 2 other ones. You said well-being is one example you use. Platform or knowledge exchange was the second thing you talked about. But also, in a way, you relate to the very fundamental question of how knowledge and innovation even diffuses in it. The traditional curves, I don't think will work as we move forward. So to answer the question, I think the fundamental debate we need to do is, can we redefine business models? And then if we can redefine business models, we can then start to say, how will they adapt themselves in a post-COVID world? And this is a very serious issue because, when we talked about cities as living regions, not necessarily geographical regions in the geopolitical sense, but as living regions, they are in many ways very global in nature. Now, if I take a perspective of one region, which is, let's say, heavily connected in the automotive sector, the footprint of that region is a global footprint by definition because of how they interact with globally. Now, if we'll use that lens and then say, what is the business model of that? It's a very different business model to something very different. So I think you're asking a lot of very interesting questions. And my view on this is, let's start with the fundamental thing. And here again, I think is we need to move away from an economic and business world view of how we have conceived and looked at business model. I really think we need to move away from that and say, because it's very easy to say, well, we are good at making this. We are good at making that. Our focus for the next 5 years is to increase these 4 sectors. And then we will look for some countries to do something else. And then we import. It's a very economic and business world view we have. And we all know it hasn't never worked for society as a whole. I mean, there's always been disparities, as you know, perhaps better than me looking at data. Those models haven't ever delivered to society the things you talked about. Well-being. If you look at, if you do want to believe on the well-being index, none of the countries we're talking about appear on the well-being index as happy citizens, people satisfied with lives, and so on and so forth. So I think one way to take this forward, I think the Brussels Council seems a very, very appropriate and I think a very exciting agenda to have further debates. I mean, we have a skeleton. I'm not saying we have the answer. We have a skeleton in our framework here, but we can ask all the questions. How does this manifest itself in business model? How does innovation look in this space? Now, the answer is, I could tell you, or draw a very simple traditional average graph, and that is your innovation model. The answer is that true in the new world? Of course not, in any sense of the word. So my response to you is, we need to work collectively. And all 4 of those ingredients which we have, business, the government, the citizens themselves, and universities, truly, for the first time, must work together in harmony and making sure the ecosystem is living, breathing, and able to adapt and survive.
Yeah, I think this is wise words and key words for everything we're doing. And I think I know that you're conscious that we are passing almost close to 2 hours. We still have around 1,000 people joining us from around the world. So thank you for everyone that has been joining us. So I think 2 last questions that I would like to ask. And I know, Jaewon, if you have some questions or not. But I think probably one of my questions for you, Dimitrios, is, so one thing that we know is that, building frames like this is very difficult. But the biggest problem is how we take this from the theory to the practice. And that's why we build both the platforms, openbusinesscouncil.org, citiesabc.com. And that it was actually part of our understanding of the lack of data, and lack of things. And I'm sure that, Peter, in your case as well, with World Smart Cities Forum is very similar. But as well, Dimitrios, as you are as well still very involved in the center of Europe with Brussels Council, what is your vision? Because I know that it's not easy to build what you're trying to do, but it's critical because, of course, we have, I think right now we have kind of a dual, I would say, dual monologue between technologies. So we have a bit of the macro global platforms that have taken control of the world economy, the world narratives, and the world data. And then we have the rest of the world that is actually trying to cope with that. And in the middle, we might have the universities, we might have researchers, but we still have a big duality between these 2 big areas. How can we actually create, making a bridge? Not, of course, I don't think we should do a revolution. There's enough revolutions in the world, and normally revolutions not always create the best things. But as well, how can we actually bridge these challenges and make this happen? And as well, from your experience, you've been doing fantastic work in putting this, and as well as one of the influencer architects of legislation in Europe, how you think we can actually put this in practice?
I believe that we don't need a revolution. We need a change in the way we see things. Revolutions are important when things cannot change otherwise. But if we wait to reach a point that we need a revolution, it's not a good indicator. We need to be proactive. So in very practical terms, I understand that, please forgive me, I'm an economist, I cannot think in another way. So one very strong factor in accelerating change in the organizational structures, changes in the mindset, changes in the business model, innovating the business model, is to find a smart way to distribute risks. And I'm usually in conversations with the digit unit of the European Commission, which is, for example, the guys who try to transform public sector. What I always tell to them, and I want your feedback on that, is that, guys, you have to act as the central bank of technology. Central bank extends its balance sheet in order to absorb out of its robustness and size the operational risks, technological risks, financial risks, in order to create institutional certainty for the people to start doing different things, move out of their comfort zone, and absorb the uncertainties of this change. And what I understand that it could be instrumental is to bring all these stakeholders together who have balance sheets of different size and work them, put them in a synergy together where each one absorbs some part of the risk of change, operational, technological, financial, and allows them to feel comfortable to move forward. This is my definition of how a robust ecosystem should work. A risk-sharing mechanism. Of course, it's a negative to put risk first, but I saw it in my 7 years in the European Union. Risk is the first thing that everybody wants to address. So create the framework that allows risk-sharing mechanisms to move forward. And another very important thing, European Union does not create technology, I mean the institutions. It buys the technology from major corporations or smaller corporations. If the procurement mechanism of a municipality, in the case of a smart city, takes the products and services from major supermarkets, technology providers, we will never have an ecosystem. We need to change the way we are doing procurement. I mean, we need to include major corporations, but also many small startups, and breed them into the creation of services and products and make them stronger and stronger. So, risk sharing, procurement policy, budgeting policy, and most importantly, a diffusion model, because a diffusion of innovation by itself is a behavioral model that focuses not on the curve, we are very familiar on the S-curve, but to the integral part of this function, the inside of the curve. And the bigger the density in the downside of the curve, the faster the acceleration of innovation. Brussels Council works with the integral part. And Brussels Council works on the risk-sharing mechanisms, but not just in the ecosystems within the Europe, but in the ecosystems of Europe with third countries. And your role as practitioners in this field is very, very instrumental.
Yeah, I think these are the cornerstone of everything we try to do here, and I think it's a great way as well to wrap up this. I don't know, Peter, do you want to have some thoughts about this, and Professor Kiran, and as we will wrap up probably in a couple of minutes?
I think I just enjoy all the great talks from the Dimitrios and also Professor Kiran. Very, very thankful for your dedication to share your insights and the experience. I personally was engaging myself into the building of the smart cities around the world in terms of the master plan with the basic concept and implementation level. I have gone through many difficulties in terms of governance and also the silo effects from the government end. So the way I see it, the building of the smart cities, in Asia, in Europe, in North America, is basically how to prioritize the major themes out of the cities, and also the most important thing about how to strengthen the governance. Because without the governance, there's nothing can actually step forward, right? So, of course, I totally agree with the Professor Kiran's about the kind of components of the supporting ecosystem of smart cities. I think the academia's role is very important these days. So that's why our organization is working very closely with one of the major universities, because we also, the number one priorities in the smart cities is actually how we actually get access to the biggest components, and to deliver all the innovation and also the technology and solutions from, creating some scratch. I think the academia is very important right now. I think that, from my experience in Asia, I was actually building up the master plan on behalf of the South Korean government, and also now I'm actually working on the Vietnamese government. So you have to see that the kind of the different characteristics, and if you actually take a look at the cities and the countries, because their KPIs is all different, right? So I think probably maybe Europe is much more complicated. So, there's Western Europe, and also, before Brexit, and the UK is one of them. So we are actually have the DNAs, and actually creating the first smart city small project from East London, Canary Wharf area. So that was actually back in 2014 and 15 and 16, is about 5 years ago. But also, I think that probably maybe from the perspective of the European Council, will be a very big challenge, because balancing the economic power and also the how to engage with all different, like more than 1,000 different challenging points. Because I still remember the building of the innovation ecosystem in Poland. Actually, they got the kind of subsidies from EU Council to redevelop the entire nations in Poland. So I see that the big change in terms of the social infrastructures and academic infrastructures, even the financial infrastructures. But I see, that there's still a big challenge to how to bring the innovations and small tech companies into the sites. The Horizon 2020 is also, it's amazing, supporting the scheme to support all the research work and everything. But you have to think about, building the smart city should also bring up the kind of another risk and also another opportunities, how to make the city much more sustainable and also resilient, right? So without the sustainability in terms of economics, there's nothing we can actually believe, because every city, they have a limited resources. So, bring up all the resources and, distributing those resources to develop the cities or the regions. So my recommendations in Europe, for example, is, there should be kind of the PPP, is maybe beyond PPP model, to bring not just like only the mechanism of the, sourcing the finances from the government sectors and private sectors. You also need to think about bring the innovation, factors. So maybe you can also take some other examples from Israeli cases, like Technology Transfer Office. So the stakeholders of Technology Transfer Office is actually from the city-wise and governments like municipalities, central government, and also local governments and the investors. So you have to mix up together with those kind of concept into the European type of the smart cities. I think that maybe a certain part of maybe South European nations probably looking forward to making, kind of reducing the gap, the economic polarizations. And Eastern Europe probably more infrastructure, or maybe finding out the common ground to work together very closely with Western, Europe's, the themes, for example. And I think I think that way, in that regards, Professor Kiran, I think that we need to develop something more distinctive way of the index to define the smart cities, because the current smart cities is pretty much high egos, and every country, they actually believe in themselves and just building up their own smart cities. But eventually the city should be connected, right? So the way of how to connect those cities and how to find out the common ground as a thing, that will be the most important thing from my perspective.
Peter, may I ask you a question out of your experience in Asia?
Yeah.
Why the smart cities in Asia scale faster than the smart cities in Europe?
Well, I don't really believe that the smart city in Asia is much better than the Europe thing. I think there are a lot of potential in Europe because, you know, more problems, more challenges, that will be actually good, you know, ingredients to do something. I think the Europe's model is much more potential. But you know, Asian smart cities are way different. It's very high end. I mean, top-down initiatives, most of them, even China, India, and South Korea and Vietnam, because the central government need to control everything. Even South Korean smart city initiatives, most of the fund comes from the central government, or maybe one of the state-owned companies. So there's no kind of real small room, small space for even the SMEs or even the large corporations. They trying to get in. They actually just going into the kind of existing procurement systems. So there's no room for the technology firms and SMEs. That's why we need to actually build a very strong ecosystem of the governance. One of the most important thing in them is how to shift the traditional procurement method to the open tech cluster model. So maybe I think maybe there's a little answer from the UK cases, from the tech city initiatives, and now it's like a tech nation initiatives. So that's why even Brexit is another obstacle to combine or collaborating between the UK and also Europe. But there might be a lot of chances from the smart city agenda. So I think that within the smart city agenda is not a kind of part of the old economic blocks. It will be something different. And during the post-pandemic or during pandemic, that is actually something that Professor Kiran and also the Dimitrios, they're actually collaborating to build up the better, or maybe something different way of defining the index and how to define the cities, because smart city is not a product. It's actually the process of how to evolve the communities and the people. That's why we just call it people-centric cities initiatives.
Yeah, sorry, I will have to close the meeting. So I think we've been here for 2 hours. There's a lot of fantastic insights. I want to thank you, all of you, for these amazing insights, and Professor Kiran for this fantastic presentation as well. I think it's a project that is in the beginning. We welcome everyone around the world to engage with this project. This is an open research that is academic and industry-led, and we're going to be continue precisely to creating an open data perspective to creative frames. Dimitrios is going to be presenting in the future more about Brussels Council. I'm sure we're going to have a lot of lives talking about that. And Jaewon, Peter, Chun, thank you so much. We're going to have, for everyone listening to us, there's 2 days of a lot of sessions, 3 days actually of a lot of sessions. There's one starting precisely right now, so I'll pass to the next speakers, and moderator, there will be Hilton Supra. So thank you so much for listening to us worldwide, and I appreciate the 1,000 plus people that were with us together. And this is the beginning. This presentation will be continue live here. There's as well being streamed on Twitter, and it's going to be as well presented for the future. So appreciate everyone. We'll put notes as well to all this research, and welcome to everyone that was with us here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dimitrios.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter, Dimitrios.